in order to be a leader, you've got to have already have walked the path of the people that are there that you come back down the path to support. So it requires a lot of vulnerability. You know, it's actually accepting that there's something there in you.
Today's guest is Joel Brown. He is the founder of the #1 motivation website, addictedtosuccess.com, that has achieved over 320 million views worldwide over the last decade. And he is also the host of the Addicted to Success podcast that has achieved more than 3.4 million downloads, featuring thought leaders such as Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, Gary Vee, and many more. And within this episode, we go really deep into authentic influence through leadership, the difference between being an influencer and being a leader, what it takes to lead with integrity and stand out in the industry, how to be overcome comparison and judgment, especially in the professional field, self-responsibility as a must for successful entrepreneurship, and other topics like prosperity mindset, creating your long-term vision while committing to living in the now, and learning from history to activate your leadership. This was a really powerful conversation that I have no doubt you will get a lot of value from. Keep on watching as we dive right into the video. Joel, thank you so much for making time again to be here in the podcast.
Round two, Sigrid. Let's do it. I remember the first round; it was really epic, and I love the work that you put out there. I follow you on Instagram, and I've been watching your content just really reach out to so many people in the world, and I love the content that you're putting out. So thanks for bringing me back in to connect with your tribe.
Thank you. And likewise, and for those of you listening, if you haven't listened to our podcast in season 1 of Sacred Leaders, it's episode 21. So after this one, I highly recommend you to go and listen to that one for sure. Joel, there are so many different things that we could speak about, but I know that there's something that's particularly alive for you at the moment. I know that you are writing a book on authentic influence through leadership. And I would love to start right there because that's such a juicy, important topic.
Yes. I'm excited to go there with you, Sigrid. And I know even the name of your podcast is about leadership too. So this is good. And I think that what I know from the feedback that I've had from my audience, from my tribe, and it's always interesting to get a younger generational view on this. But a lot of them have said that they feel like the topic leadership is a little bit boring. It's kind of a little bit outdated, right? And I think it's because it's kind of this area where a lot of people are waiting until they're, 50, 60, 70 to say, now I'm a leader. And a lot of the older generation are putting out books around leadership. And I look at this and I think like, wow, leadership is so damn important. And even the conversation around influence, people are confusing what this whole influencer and leader, they're kind of like confused as to like what's what, and is one more authentic than the other, or are they the same? And so I look at this and think like, cool, I know for me, I've been in this practice for the last 12 years of really practicing integrating what it means to be a leader. And I by no means am a perfect individual, just like you and everyone else here. And I think the thing that I really love most about leadership is that it holds you to a high standard. Yes. It holds you in integrity. It's about your character. It's about your reputation. It's this mirror that reflects back to you. Am I standing in my highest potential? Because anyone that's a leader, which by the way, I believe everyone has a leader inside of them.
100%.
Most people aren't willing to step into it. And or they have this humming, limiting belief of I'm not good enough, where they keep downplaying the inner leader that's available to them at any point in time. And so I look at this and think like, cool, if it's so damn important and it moves mountains and it creates movements and it revolutionizes the way that we live in society, then let's freshen it up. Let's take a different approach. Let's look at this from another perspective. Let's understand where it's coming from. Let's understand the power of influence and leadership. And let's not confuse the two together. And I think that what we've done within like pop culture, social media culture, is we've taken this view of an influencer is typically somebody that has been able to build some form of engagement or response online through, great pictures, maybe some great video content, maybe based off the amount of followers they have, how many likes they get on pictures. And it's almost created this distortion between like, are we supposed to follow this person because they have other followers? And I love it. I love that it's created this conversation, and not a lot of people are having it, but it's something that I'm starting to notice a lot more people are open to listening to and saying like, hey, I really want to look into this and understand within myself, am I an influencer or am I a leader? And so what I know after creating addictedtosuccess.com, we've reached over 320 million website views. We have 2.7 million at this point in time social media followers. And I'm here telling you that that ain't it. Like, it's not about that, that didn't really move the needle. Maybe it helps with some exposure. Maybe it helps with some form of credibility, but ultimately on the back end, what's more important is when people come and when they become a part of your experience with you, when they co-create with you in that experience, are they leaving feeling like they were better off? Are they getting results in their life, or are they still looking at you feeling like, hey, I don't think I can ever be there?
Yes.
And then you're standing there going, well, I kind of tricked that person into following me because I used some glitz and glamour and fancy numbers and paid for bots to get fake followers and likes and everything else. So I really am excited and passionate about bringing it back into this genuine conversation around, hey, you don't need to do that. Like, that's not going to be the long-term game that gives you the hardcore results that you're really looking for that would expand your vision. That's the short-term win. And slowly but surely, people that are playing that short-term game are getting called out. It doesn't take much to just look through Instagram and look for people that have millions of followers on Instagram or hundreds of thousands. And then you look at their engagement, it's like that person has like 10 likes on their content or more importantly, like 2 comments. What's the point of having hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of followers if you just have a handful of people engaging with what you're up to? And so there's layers to this. It's layers of, okay, someone's liked my content, someone's commented on my content, but is that person in the DMs messaging me? Is this person wanting to jump on a call? Is this person wanting to buy my book? Is this person wanting to come to my event? Has this person reached out to me saying, oh my gosh, because of your leadership, because of your message, because of the way that you held space and supported me, my life will never be the same in such a massive and impactful, positive way. And now I get to go out there and also be a leader in my own walk and own right too. I think a lot of people aren't looking at this deeper work that they get to do. They're just distracted by the surface. Are you seeing this as well? Are you noticing this?
1,000%, 1,000%. And I'm all about this and that depth. And I feel like you touched on so many key points and really important things to talk about in regards to this. When you were saying just that last little piece, I was thinking about the influencer versus leader. And one way in which I look at it is the leader is the influencer that really commits and understands the responsibility of the influence that they're making, right? So there's a lot of people out there influencing people, but not doing it in an intentional way, not doing it with integrity, not doing it in a conscious way. So they're still influencing people. The things that they post, the things that they say have an influence and have an impact in the world. But because maybe that lack of awareness around that, or the lack of commitment to creating an impact and making an influence that is intentional, that is conscious, they're not in a position of leadership, right? So it's really looking at, you are going to influence people. Of course, if you have a platform, if you're writing content, if you have people looking at you or following you or reading what you put out there, you are going to have an influence. But what you do with that influence and the level of commitment to using that influence for good is what determines whether you are a leader or just another influencer.
Yeah,
As if,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing things that are disposable rather than going, wait a minute, is what I'm doing actually going to leave a mark here? Is it going to create a ripple effect of inspiration?
yes.
And this is, what I said before around co-creating experiences. This is what it's all about. When you have people that come to your retreat, or you have people that come to a coaching session with you or a workshop, you're inviting them into an experience. And within that experience, I'm sure you teach them frameworks, you share stories, you encourage them to share their story, they're answering questions, and they're connecting dots. What you're doing in that moment is you're co-creating an experience together. There will never be another experience that is just like that. That is what is so awesome about this, is that if I trust myself enough to know, okay, I am good enough and I have wisdom and I have value and I get to share it. And it doesn't mean that it has to like bedazzle people and make them think I'm the man, whatever that is, right? But they're coming and will genuinely hear sharing value for value with each other. And you're going to walk away from that experience and go, I had a breakthrough moment and it happened in this place at that time. And they could be talking about that, in years or decades. It's a memory that they've been able to look back on and go, wow, that was what was possible. And you never know how much of an impact it has on that person's life, that they could continue to expand upon more possibilities as they move forward in life because they had that moment and that experience with you. To me, that's just way too valuable. And so I'm not here to just influence fleetingly moment to moment. It's I'm here with people going, you're a human being like me. You've got a beating heart in your chest. You breathe, the air that I breathe. And we're here in this moment. And there's a possibility that today you could be even stepping one step closer to your dreams, or every step closest to your dreams. And so I think that when we approach life as just this disposable, short-term win, we're really cheating ourselves. We're missing out on the juice of life. And so that's what I love about leadership, is to hold you to those higher standards, to understand that you have a responsibility and ownership, first for your character, but also for what you're able to co-create with others when you bring them into an experience.
Yes, I love that. And one really important key that you just mentioned, you said, when you believe that you are good enough. And I feel like this is the place where so much performative leadership stems from, because there are people out there, and you were talking about it before, like people maybe thinking, I'll never get there, I'll never be like you. And I've seen this play out in so many people that are aspiring to be in positions of leadership. And it's just natural, nothing to be ashamed of if you're listening to this and you're doing that. But really, we get to look into this because there's a lot of coaches and healers and people in this space creating dynamics of codependence with their clients and creating or perpetuating this separation where the client puts the coach or the healer or the facilitator in a pedestal and look up to them as someone that they will never be able to be like, right? And I see the leader as someone that goes, let's go. We're all going. It's not, look at me, I'm up here in this pedestal and you'll never be like me. But in order to be able to be in that type of leadership where we are, like you said, wanting to support people, wanting to co-create that transformative experience, we must face that shadow aspects of ourselves that don't think that we're enough and therefore want to create that separation and that glorification of who we might be in the eyes of others.
For sure. To not to shortchange any influencers, and I've been called an influencer myself. I'm sure you have too. It's more about how we create this context around it, right? It's because influencers is something that got brought into play through the culture, not as much as such as like someone just came up with the name and then like that's what it is, and it's an actual title that's been around for a long time. Influence is what you get to do. Each and every one of us do that. It's what we do with that influence, right? Now, we talked before about being good enough. In order to be a leader, you've got to have already walked the path of the people that are there that you come back down the path to support. So it requires a lot of vulnerability. It's actually accepting that there's something there in you that you get to work on, that you get to go deep into. And it starts with forgiveness. It starts with ownership, it starts with responsibility. And I always liken it to that movie 8 Mile. Remember, with Eminem? And right at the end, spoiler alert, everyone should have seen it by now. It's a classic movie. But right at the end, he's in his last rap battle, right? And he starts dissing himself in the rap battle to the point where the other guy just had nothing left to say. He couldn't say anything to clown him because he had already beat himself to the punch.
Yes.
And you know, I love this. I love seeing my clients and my students. I'm sure you have this too. And anyone that's listening right now that's in this space, seeing your clients and your students work through their traumas, their wounds, to do the healing, to move to that place of finding that power in the vulnerability to the point where they become like unstoppable. You know, you end up being 10 foot tall and bulletproof because you've already accepted every part of yourself that people now no longer can put chinks in your armor, because you've already worked through everything that's needed in order for you to stand strong on your own 2 legs.
Yes.
You know, so there's many different elements of what it means to be a leader. And a lot of leaders that I work with, we very much so focus on the creation aspect, right? So being a visionary, but being a visionary in a sense that you're not chasing money, but you're developing the vision, and you look at money not as a tool of constant, a tool of certainty. You're looking at money as a tool for creation. You know, this was a big money mindset shift for me to really build upon my kingdom of what I've built here. And I used to look at money as a tool for certainty. So what that did was it kept me in survival. I didn't move into thriving until I realized, like, wow, I could actually use this to build structures in my life and to invest back into my own self-growth, to then become a better leader that stands on even stronger legs, that even has more creation around me. Because the word prosperous, when we talk about prosperity, abundance, creation, prosperous actually means to look forward to the future in hope, to move forward with hope. That's a Latin root word meaning of prosperous, look forward with hope. And so a lot of leaders will have this working on the stuff from the past to clear out, to stand on stronger legs. They start to build their own certainty and trust in themselves. And then they can work on the influence aspect when they start becoming visionary minded and in their creation. And these are a couple of the principles that, you know, I practiced living in for so long, and I encourage all my students to live in, is to move from that place of going from certainty into influence, and then influence multiplies your impact. So many people are trying to jump straight to impact and say, I want to, you know, do all these things and impact. It's like, yo, you need to heal your wounds, go into the shadow, meet your own damn self, do your own damn work, right? Then you can move to influence, because people can feel the conviction and the certainty in the way that you speak. You know, you have this organization within yourself. Like, people can say, hey, look, that person's organized. That person's not trying to be someone and trying to get clout for their identity. They actually are doing things through action, and they lead with that. It's more about their character of who they're becoming in the process. And your true character rises when you're facing the storm. You can't have your character shaped by just always living in good times. It's about really going in. And I love that saying by Jordan Peterson, and I might butcher it, but I'll paraphrase it. Essentially says that it's better to go to the lair and slay the dragon than to wait for it to come to destroy your village. And this is what the work is that we get to do. Not just you and I, but everyone here that's listening. If you're listening right now, this is the work you get to do, is slay that dragon before it comes to the village and burns the whole damn village down.
Definitely. And I completely agree with what you said as well, that can be felt. And that's the thing, like, sometimes we want to skip steps and just go to the master level, but you can't get there if you are not in mastery of yourself. I could be here repeating, I could be saying the things that I'm saying right now 5 years ago, and the level of embodiment would not be there. the level of embodiment I have now would not be there. So I could be saying the same epic words, but they would mean nothing. And that can really be felt. And I feel like it's always been felt. But I tell you what, I think that this year, it's been a year that has brought so many people in deeper tune with their intuition. Like really, I feel like so many people have started waking up to their own inner compass. So I feel like if there were people already being able to feel that when people were in integrity and in alignment last year, this year it's like tenfold. People are a lot more on. So if you're bullshitting yourself, people are going to know that. They're going to feel it, regardless of whether your branding is amazing and your messaging is epic. If you are not in that embodied level in your leadership, it can be felt. It can totally be felt.
100%. Yeah. You know, where I think that most people are possessed by ideas they haven't truly integrated. That's where the wisdom is. You know, when we embody and we integrate, you can't take that away from us anymore. Yes, you know, there are a lot of people that parrot information. You see it online all the time. It's like they're saying it, and whether you know them or not, there's an energetic disconnect. You're like, oh, like you don't feel convinced, right? It's like, is that person sharing that? And maybe you might have even heard it somewhere before. Like, oh, I'm pretty sure I heard that on like a audio CD or the Audible book I downloaded last week. I heard that exact thing, and that person's like rapping it like that. And there's inconsistencies. And, you know, not to judge that in any sort of way, I do know that we're all on our own journey. And I've been that person before too, where I was fully convinced that I got something. And actually a great example, I'm going to share this. This is a great example of leadership. So Tony Robbins and I are in a movie together. It's called We Rise Up. And I was on set in Denver, Colorado. I don't think I've shared this through a podcast before. This is exclusive through a podcast. And listen up, guys. Exclusive. So Tony Robbins and I were on the set, and Tony came in for filming, and he didn't look like himself. You know, he looked very beaten, and he was tired. And the director that was standing near me asked Tony, "Hey Tony, like what's going on? Are you all right?" And he said, "I just came out of shoulder surgery." And he said, it hurts so much. And he said, I'm on a couple meds right now. He said, I didn't expect it to be like this. I thought it would just be in and out. And he said, it's really hurt. He said, it feels like it's burning and stinging there. And it was really interesting. You know, I grew up listening to a lot of Tony's stuff, and you see Tony, he's a big dude. He's, you know, big booming voice and very commanding, great leader and powerful. And I'm standing there on set with him, and I was filming right after him, which is kind of like a hard gig to follow. Yes. But I was watching him, and it was really interesting to see Tony actually live what he teaches. You know, so, and he sits down and he's sitting like this, and he closes his eyes. He looked kind of like, I don't know if he was in like prayer or he's in like setting the intention or whatever it was. And he just went like, you know, he's breathing and he's getting his mind focused, and he's slapping his knees like this, and he's getting into state. And then they go, you know, action, and he drops right in and he delivers really powerfully. And he went on for about 10 minutes, and then he finished up, and we had a chat with him. We're hanging out with him, and we got a photo with him, and just talking a little bit about the industry and everything. And he actually was on one of my podcasts. So we talked a bit about that. And then he had to leave that room and go into a convention center, which was part of where we were filming in that studio. And we got some VIP bands, and Tony said, come down and check out, you know, the event. And anyway, so we were filming. I did my piece. Lisa Nichols was there too. Dean Graziosi. We were having conversations about the movie and everything. And I kept checking the time. I thought, man, I want to go see Tony. So I went to go to the VIP section where Tony was. And I went down right near the front, and I saw Tony. He was standing on the stage, and they were in the last like 20 minutes. And he's standing there, and he said, you know what, guys, I got to be honest with you. He said, I didn't want to come here today. He said, I'm feeling down and out. I'm feeling exhausted. He said, I'm on these meds. They feel like they're really kicking in. and he said, you know, I'm really sore. And he said, but, you know, everything in me kept saying to me, like, don't show up this morning. And he just said, but I remember that you guys are going to be here. And he said, I'm not just saying this. He said, I'm looking out right now. And he said, I'm feeling emotional. Like, I'm really happy I came here today and to see you all here. And I just know, like, if you could just take just one thing from this and just go and apply it, like, I'd just love to see that shift happen in your life and just keep riding that momentum. And I just remember like standing and seeing him and going like, damn, that's embodiment right there, you know? And I shared this on stage at an event with Preston and Alexi, and Peter Kelly actually was there. And we had a really big night that night. It was like our last event, and we celebrated. And then the next day I was feeling tired. And one of the guys, Rick Williams, was filming an interview series, and he contacted me and said, hey, Joel, we're leaving Scottsdale, Arizona really soon. Can you come down to film? And I'm like, dude, I'm feeling, you know, pretty exhausted. Maybe we could catch up sometime in LA. And he's like, I'm not going to be in LA. I got to leave back for London. And I was like, yeah, man, like maybe like tomorrow. And he goes, bro, Tony Robbins. And I was like, oh crap. I'm like, you calling me out right now.
That's all he needed to say.
He goes, what would Tony do? And I was like, yeah, dude, you're right. So I showed up and we rocked it, and it was amazing. But it was so good because it taught me in that moment, and it really humbled me. And I'm sharing this with you guys, being vulnerable in this, because you could be like, oh, Joel's not the leader I thought he was, blah, blah, whatever. The reason why I share this is because when I saw that in Tony, I was inspired by it. At the time, I thought I got the lesson, but I didn't get the lesson until it was then challenged and tested on me to then be in a similar boat. You know, I wasn't in as much pain. I was actually genuinely exhausted, but I still pushed through it. And then what happened within myself, and happens in you too when you do this, is it reflected back to me that was a potential that I stepped into. You know, if someone asked me for an interview quite a few months ago, what's your biggest fear? And I said, my greatest fear is not living in my God-given potential. You know, like one day when I cross the great divide and I stand before God, I don't want him to say, Joel, I gave you this much and you only did this. You know, like that feeling of like, wow, I really didn't live. I didn't fully love. I didn't give. I didn't live with that passion in life, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love that.
That's a, you know, a great lesson in itself for you to look at and just see like, okay, what are the lessons I know are really important? And then when it shows up, the opportunity shows up, live it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Are you embodying those things? Again, the things that you are creating content around, the things that you are speaking on stage about, or making videos about, or making podcasts about. Are you showing up as the embodiment of those lessons when nobody's watching, when it's not content creation time or speaking time? And it's a huge thing. And I really want to talk about self-responsibility, Joel, because I feel like within that story, there's a big responsibility key, right? And working in this industry for so many years, I have been able to see that something that gets in the way for a lot of people is projection.
Yeah.
Is either putting people on a pedestal and thinking that others are somehow better than them, or going into this grandiosity complex as well, thinking that they know more than, and people are less than, and they're better than the clients, or they're bigger than the clients, or whatever. It's always this comparison, right? And it stems out from low self-esteem. So what I learned is that there is almost like a spectrum on self-esteem. And when it's low towards the downside, we go into shame. We go into feeling less of. We're going to feeling insecure, less than. We go into this inferiority complex. When it goes up, we go into this grandiosity complex. However, it's the same thing. It stems out from low self-esteem. We go either we're thinking that we're less than or better than. It comes down to the fact that our self-esteem is not in balance. It's not in a healthy way, right? So I see that many people get stuck there. They either think that some people have it easier and they're never going to be like them, and they have it all figured out, and they're somehow goddess-like and not human, or they think that too many people are full of shit, out of integrity and all of that. And I have found myself in the past being in both. But I know that in order to create sustainable success as an entrepreneur and to create a potent legacy as a leader, self-responsibility is an absolute key, because we need to really understand that nobody's going to come and hand us the results, come and save us, or give us the success that we desire. Nobody's going to hand it to us. And while we are projecting, whether up or down the scale, we are missing the whole point. So as someone that has been in this game for years, and I see you as someone that has created sustainable success and that has continued to be in the game, and as you said, really in embodiment, I'm really curious to know what your experience with self-responsibility related to leadership and entrepreneurship has been.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This is such a loaded question. And I love it. I love that you went there. And it's so true. You're right. You can play in both sides. And I say there's reflection in the spectrum, right? You go from one end to the other. So often I'll meet Christians, or I'll meet people that are really deep into New Age spirituality that used to be like convicts, like they used to be in prison, or they're like, into drugs, or like hardcore party, whatever it is. And what we do often is we tend to overcompensate to equilibrate. Now, I'm not saying that that's an overcompensation if you're in those spaces. It's just that sometimes when we have such a high intense experience in one area, one dominion, one capacity, we tend to think like, okay, I'm going to go contrast it now. And we're doing it on a subconscious level, not knowing that we're moving to the place. It seems different as it's playing out in reality, but we move to that space to go and kind of get a feel for like, do I like this contrast better? Hoping that the answer is going to be there. And I wouldn't say that I've lived long enough to fully know all the answers around that yet. I think that we live in a world where there's more questions than there are answers.
Totally.
But at the same time, I do like the idea of looking at life as that you're a mad freaking scientist in the lab of life. Like, you get to experiment, you get to experience life, in a way where what is dark, what is light, what is hot, what is cold, what is up, what is down, what is, light and dark. Like, what is this? What really is this? And I say, you got the light and the dark, and people are making this wrong or this bad, and this making this right. And somewhere in the middle, we can combine the two. And it doesn't mean we have to be executing on both. It just means that we have now an understanding of, if we bring the light and the dark together, it becomes gray. And in the gray, with gray hairs, you get the wisdom, right? So I'm very open to accepting others that have lived in a very, I'd say, like, maybe in a taboo way, or if society may say that person might be right or wrong in however they live. I love both sides of the spectrum. I love people in both, because I know that I've danced between the two and I have an understanding of what it means. And I think that often what we do is, if we're going to be comparing to somebody else's journey, we should also be in the practice of seeking to understand their journey too. Yes. Because you can't fully compare. A lot of people, what I find they do is they'll say like, oh, that person must have it so easy. They're like gifted, talented, and all that. And they have this almost like this fantasy version of how that person became successful. Mm-hmm. And they've like put that person so much on what you're saying before, the pedestal, that they let themselves off the hook from being able to even go and achieve that themselves. So then they live in their limited story. And this happens when we don't take ownership to sit down and say, what is it that I really truly desire to create in my life? Yep. Like, what would be really meaningful to me, and why would it be meaningful? And if I was to do this, would this be me fully expressing my gifts and my abilities and my talents? We all have amazing gifts. We've all been God-given, blessed with all these incredible things within us to be able to share with the world. And it's usually the stories and narratives that are in play within our own mind that's limiting us from being able to get there. And I always say, this question that you got to ask yourself is, what's blocking me and stopping me from realizing that I'm already there? What I desire to achieve is there. It's attainable. I was coaching someone just before I jumped on a call with you, and we're having this conversation about someone that she had noticed had done really well. And I said, the difference between her and you in a matter of mechanics of what was going on was that she got clear, she got committed, and she also focuses now on service. How can I serve at the highest level? In my commitment and in my clarity. And that's really what it is. And often if we aren't clear on our own vision, we find ourselves in comparison. So the ownership comes in where we sit down and write out our vision. Because if I'm not focused on my lane and I'm looking at yours, constantly looking at yours, at some point I veer to the left or the right and I crash. And then it's very hard to get back in because I've been spending most of my time focusing on what you're doing and not actually focusing on what feels deep and meaningful to me. What's in alignment with my values? Like, where do my beliefs run in all of this? Is this actually where I want to head? Because a lot of people aren't even clear on what is the destination. Like, where do I desire to go with this? That's why I was saying the short-term thinking is a killer. You're not thinking 5-year vision, 10-year vision. Like, if I'm making decisions today that go towards my 10-year vision, there's a very high chance I'm going to reach my 10-year vision soon enough.
Yes.
But if I'm making decisions today based off what I want to do day by day, then I'm going to be stuck in a loop of just reaching my potential that's only expressed in a short period. I'm thinking of like, man, what could I do in 10 years from now? Who could I be? And I'm challenging everyone that's listening to this right now. Think about it. What is your true potential? Like, you don't know how smart I am. You don't know how smart you are. There's so much there that we haven't even tapped into yet.
Yes, I love that. And I feel like that's the main piece in there. It's that people that are truly successful stopped worrying and focusing their attention into what other people were doing and started focusing on creating their own version of success, their own thing. And with the 10-year vision, Joel, here's the thing. Whenever I hear this, and I remember in the last episode, you were like, what's your 10-year vision? And I was like, I don't have one and I don't want one. And I remember speaking to you about it later and being like, I live in the present moment. I don't want to be thinking 10 years ahead from now. And this is a question that has actually triggered me ever since I worked in corporate. I remember I went on a date when I was working in corporate with someone that worked at my office just back in the day. And this guy, his first question is like, what's your 10-year vision? And my brain was like, boring. Why are you asking me this?
That's a date killer. You don't ask that on the first date.
Right. I was like, what's wrong with this guy?
Ask it on the second.
Yeah. But what I find with you is that I experience a really great balance of heading towards that 10-year vision while being really present and enjoying your daily life. So when I think about it and when I look at you, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I have my own version of my 5-year, my 10-year vision. But when someone asks that question, I instantly think about people that are overly planning every single detail and forgetting to live their life, living for the future and not living for the present. And with you, what I experience is that you have a clear vision of the future that you want to create, but you're enjoying to the max every single day. So what's the balance there? How do you do that?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. To your point, I don't trust my subconscious enough to think that it's going to actually help me to create my 10-year vision unless I sit down with it and at least get some clarity in play, right? Because, and I say that because 90% of our thoughts are the same as the day before. We only think 5 to 10% new thoughts. Now, if I write down my vision, I get intentional now. Okay. And I like that you said, you know, it seems like people that do this could also fall into the habit of trying to plan and organize absolutely everything, that they miss the point of being present. And it's true. You can be extreme in that area as well. And that's what we call like the dark side of visionary, is when you become so obsessed that you lose relationships, you lose your health and all sorts of things because you're so obsessed, right? So I would say like
mysterious.
Yeah. So I'd say this extremes of everything. But what I'd like to think is if I at least got like my future organized a little bit more, like a bit more sorted, then I'm not having to kind of have my mind in there as often as well. Like I have my 10-year vision pretty mapped out to the point where I carry it around in my head. I've written it down a bunch of times. Like I teach the vision process, and I'm very clear to the point where my reticular activating system, my RAS, look it up. It's pretty cool. It like it like dials in and focuses on and laser targets on things that are going to be useful to put the vision together. So now I'm living with more intention, strength, and power to do that. What I do have in my vision too is to have presence, to have time. Like one of my areas of my vision is self-development, and that's also spiritual development. So I spend my time with God. You know, each day I'm in prayer. Each day when I'm visualizing, I'm also in relationship with God too. I'm not about religion, I'm about relationship. And so for me, it's like saying to God, hey, God, back me up here. Is this something here that you believe would be of great co-creation with me? Right? It's like my own personal time that I have there. I didn't have that before, but because it's in my vision and I've made it very clear that that would be very powerful in my life, that brings me into a lot of awesome presence. I spend time just being really grateful, spend time in my appreciation, you know, in my requesting of what I want in my day. And then when it's there and it shows up in my day, I'm very grateful for it. You know, so it's how we operate from moment to moment. But what I do know is I know a lot of people that don't have a vision, and it's very tough because they could say I'm in the moment, but they're also stressing about the future.
1,000%.
Right. So the certainty that we get to build through the work that we're talking about before, the shadow work and everything, clears out the past. The vision organizes the future. So then we can be more powerfully in our present.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like that's very powerful, that approach that you just shared, because what I've seen in the past, what I've seen in a lot of people is what I said, like over planning to the point where there is not room for what life wants to bring, right? What God wants to bring, what spirit, the universe, your higher self, however you decide to call and relate to that. There is no space for that. And then when we are trying to manifest and operate and plan and organize and design our lives from a purely mind-driven space, it's a very limited thing. So that's why for me, just like you said, it's very important to make room every single day to be in prayer. For me, it's prayer and it's also meditation. And I like to be in nature, in silence, all of these little moments where I'm opening myself up to guidance, right? And it doesn't matter what God you pray to or in what way you relate to whatever divinity you experience or how you view that, but making that space, that room to be available, to become available and make yourself available to whatever life wants from you. I think it's a key differentiator.
Yeah. You know, to the point of, we talk about God, right? And we talk about having deeper meaning and, you know, why we're here. These questions are huge. Like, who am I? Why am I here? What happens when I die? Like, huge rabbit hole conversations, right? But I want to like just paint that picture so we're looking at like the big picture of it all. And then really think about how you're showing up right now, whether you're branding yourself right now, marketing, maybe you're just starting your business, maybe you're going through a transition right now, whatever it may be for you. And just really thinking about this, your values and your beliefs drive every decision that you make, right? Every decision you make, that from moment to moment, every decision you make driven by your values, what you value most in life and what you believe to be true. Now, if I'm coming from a place where I'm not healed in certain aspects of my life, like let's say I've got triggers around past relationships, maybe I've got this anger towards my father, and what's behind anger is hurt. I haven't healed that. And then with my mother, I feel like unsupported, right? Then what's going to happen is it may feel like it's in the background or it's below or it's lower or whatever it feels like on the surface. But that's still tied to you to some degree. And it's also affecting what you value in life and also what you believe about life and about yourself. Your self-concept is affected by this because you are, whether you like it or not, connected to your parents and you're connected to your family members and you're connected to the friends that you choose in your life too. They're in your life because you value similar things. Otherwise, you wouldn't be friends, right? So if I am branding myself or I'm stepping out to launch my business or I'm putting myself out there and I have these unhealed parts of myself in those areas of life, it creates an insecurity. I don't truly trust myself. I can try and put it on. I can parrot information and I can put on the mask and I can show up this way. But what happens is it comes from force then. It's not coming from power. I'm forcing my way to be a certain someone because I think that the world will accept that. Because if they really truly knew me, the unhealed self, it wouldn't be good enough. Yes. So my decisions are always coming from this overcompensation to have to try and be something that I'm not. That's not true leadership.
That's a trap.
trying to be an influence, but that's not actually embodying leadership to the level where you naturally influence because you're authentically in your power. That one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your presence. When I'm here with you right now, Sigrid, I'm present with you. I'm listening to the questions you're asking. On a subtle, unconscious level, I'm seeing your reactions, your facial expressions. It's happening, right? You're doing the same with me. And so when we have the future in a way planned and organized, not, you got to sprinkle it with faith because you never know what's going to be around the corner. We had 2020 this year. No one could have predicted this one, right? And then in the background, we have the things going on. It's like, I want to set myself up to win. You know, I see what it takes to be a leader and I'm going there no matter what, you know? And so with that, I know that the ownership is going to be the healing. I don't want to make decisions about my business or how I market myself based off an insecurity. I want to do it from a genuine place of power because I genuinely desire to serve. So right now, when I share this, I'm challenging you. I'm calling you out if there's something there and saying, and calling you forward, not out, but forward to say, now's the time. Like if you know that there's some healing that's required, if there's some forgiveness work, if there's some journaling that's required, if there's maybe you've been lacking spiritual connection, maybe you've got all the money in the world, but you're spiritually bankrupt, right? Mm-hmm. Bring it back in, like go there, because they're moving yourself out of those lower brackets of consciousness into that higher space of forgiveness, peace, joy, acceptance, creation. It's powerful. Then you don't have to put anything on. Then you don't have to try and be somebody. You just are. Mm-hmm. Powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff, definitely. And there's never been a time like now to do this. This has always been important, but more than ever. Like, look at the current climate of the world. We have quote unquote leaders bullshitting in so many different ways, being so disappointing in the way in which they are showing up for their nations, for their employees, for the people that are following them, and that they are meant to be taken care of in so many different ways, in so many different areas, right? And as we were talking about before, I feel like people can feel that, and more people are starting to tune into that fine level of intuition. And it is important. I don't like to say the world needs it. I'm not really into that. The world needs you. The world will continue to be the world, whether you step up or not. But what a gift to really say yes to yourself, to liberate yourself from all the lies that you've believed about yourself, who you are, what you're capable of, what you're worthy of, to really bring yourself into deeper alignment and freedom through saying yes to your gifts. Like you were saying, not getting to the day of your death and feeling like you didn't do enough, like you really didn't honor your gifts.
Yeah. Amen to that. You know, it's interesting because I think that we adopt so much, which is another reason why, even with my relationship with God, without the whole religious aspect of this relationship, I needed to choose that for myself at some point. I couldn't adopt it because then I'd be a grandchild of God. I wouldn't be a child of God. You know what I mean? Because then it's just like I chose it because my parents did, or my, auntie and uncle did, or whoever. And so I'm a big believer that you must have a reason for what it is that you're committing to in life. You can't just just adopting it is not good enough. I know it because I've seen a lot of people that have adopted and then they don't get where they want to be, and then they wonder why they aren't. And I'm like, well, you chose that, A lot of what's happened in the world, I know right now there's like a, political turbulence that's going on.
Hashtag controversial.
Yeah, no one knows the outcome right now, right? So there's a lot wavering in the wind. And to be honest, it's like, end of the day, we look at this left or right, it's Bloods and Crips. You know what I mean? It's like it's an organization that's part of the bigger governing force that ultimately, I think people now are starting to realize that they're not choosing or not being able to choose in the way that they thought they did. Their democracy is questionable right now. Yes. But if we take an even bigger hover above it all, and this might be a little bit of a history lesson, I don't know how much time we have, but I wanted to break in on this because I think it's really important, is that a lot of what we do and how we operate today hasn't come from where you thought it's come from. Right? So in the Iron Age, Rome ruled damn near most of the world. And the Romans, when they took over parts of Greece, they actually brought in Greek philosophy, where they got democracy, which is, that's our best bet at government. And that's had a, great influence to a certain degree. And they also brought in other ways of living. One of the negative ways of living was that they had this belief that a leader is based off their profile. So they very much looked at like a leader looks this way and anybody else can't be a leader. And if you actually look at the profile, it's disturbing. A leader can only be light colored hair, pointy nose, light colored skin.
Male.
It's like, and then anybody else isn't meant to be a leader. And that's how a lot of slavery came into play, right? Totally unfair for anyone that's brought in the world with anything different than that. You look at someone like Hitler. He created the Third Reich, which is the third rise of Rome. That was his belief that was supposed to be in play. And that's why he was really trying to bring in the Aryan race. And then that's why he had no problems trying to exterminate the Jews. So we have these things in our culture where, like, even to this day, we're affected by it. And we're like, yeah, why is there racism? Like, why was there slavery? Like, we don't quite know, because a lot of us discount the history and we're told to just keep moving forward. But it's like, wait a minute, what are the lessons there? And what can we learn from this? And a lot of what happened was Rome in its power, this is incredible, Sigrid, is Rome knew that if they sent 300 Romans or more to a town or a city, they would influence the culture within that town or city. That's how they were able to spread their civilization far and wide. That's why they called Europe, Europa. You got Francia, which is France, Germania, which is Germany, right? Back in the day, it was ruled by Rome. The reason why Rome is no longer around in its capacity that it was, it's actually still around. You've got the Vatican, the papacy, and everything else that's still there, but Rome actually became very immoral, and it disintegrated from within. It actually collapsed on itself. And what we look at now is, like, we see what's happening in the social landscape and the political landscape and everything that's going on. And a lot of us are going like, wait a minute, that favors more of what I believe is true, but we're not actually understanding why it's there in the first place. And we're like, well, I've got to grab something and lean into something, or I'm going to totally disconnect myself from the experience and pretend that like it's not happening. And what I love about this, I think it's very triggering when we talk about religion and politics, is it very much becomes part of our identity, which is why people totally flip out and get aggressive towards each other, because it feels like when someone doesn't agree with it, that it's attacking their identity.
Yes.
So I go even deeper and go, wait a minute, if it has that much pull, what else in the scape with social media, with the business world, with how you were raised throughout high school, within our families, within our friendships, within dating and relationships, like how much of this am I attaching to my identity? And how much is it moving and pushing my decisions that I make every day? It's moving so much of your decisions that you wouldn't even know unless you sat down and really got clear on it. Yeah. So I often say, like, one of the best things you can do to really get clear on your leadership and become more powerful is audit yourself. Challenge your own reasoning, challenge your values, your beliefs, sit with it, get into your vision and say, is this tied to my meaning? And I know it might sound like it's super psychological, like, wow, this would be like psychological.
No, but it's powerful stuff.
But this is like next level in order to be able to move yourself to a place of openness, of understanding both sides, which has been a practice for me too, to be open to both and being in conversation to a point where you're not even getting triggered when you're talking on both sides of the table, because you've got more of a 360 view of this, and you're also not tying your identity to having to be accepted by it, and that you can just stand strong and be a leader for more people in this world to create more impact.
Yeah, that's huge. And I feel like that's also what we need more of, because if the way in which you carry your leadership is about making sure that others become like you are, or believe the things you believe, or accept everything that you possibly say or talk about, there's not really room for everyone to be as they are, and to honor their own gifts and their own perceptions and their own. So I feel like that's something that we also get to lean into, not just for our own personal evolution, but in order to be in true conscious leadership, is really understanding all of the places where we're still not free, where we are deeply conditioned by whatever we have been conditioned by, and reprogramming or deprogramming ourselves so that we can truly be a stand for people, not just the people that believe in the same God that we believe in, or that follow the same principles that we follow, or that vote for the same people that we vote. Like, actually be a stand for people. And I guess that's the difference. Like, are you a leader for humanity? Are you a leader for peace? Are you a leader for freedom? What are your values? What are you a leader for? Are you a leader just to the people that look like you, act like you, and believe like you? Or are you a leader for all of us to be in a better place together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes courage.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's this dance between courage and compassion. It's the lion and the lamb. And that's why I love studying Jesus too, because he was both, like, so loving and so caring and so giving, but also so courageous in his mission, you know? And that's like, find that standard and go like, where am I willing to go to? Because some people may say, hey, yeah, okay, I'm a leader. And Greek philosophy tells me that there's only a profile that could be a leader, but actually, truly, everyone is. We've all been given dominion over the earth.
Yeah.
And so, like, we forget that, or we don't even know it. And so I look at that and go, how high do you want to play? Because it's not a question of can I play? You all can. Every single person could be a leader. It's just, how high do you want to play it?
Yeah, for sure. And I look at ancient civilizations or ancient cultures as well. And for me, I learned so much from that. As you know, for you connect with Jesus. For me, I call it Great Spirit, and my practices are different. But my way of connecting to quote unquote God, and my way of learning about that deeper truth and connecting to someone bigger than myself, it's been through being in ceremonies with indigenous elders from different cultures. And what I see when I see their leadership is that there is such a deep commitment of letting go of the personality. They might have a personality at home, but when it comes to the leadership, they're nothing but a channel for service. So I absolutely love that.
I'd say, like, a lot of them are away from society's programming, you know, and that's a damn shame for so many of us that have been so programmed by structures created by other humans that want to limit us and don't want us to excel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this comes down, even when we have the conversation around money, you know, the way we're taught that money is this tool for certainty, and only a certain class can have this much. And like, there's so many invisible lines that are put in place, but a lot of people don't know they're invisible. A lot of people don't know that you can actually walk through them, and you can break barriers, and there are no limits.
Yeah. I feel like we can go into a whole other episode just on this. So we're going to wrap it up. But I'm like, everything in me is like, okay, we need to speak more about this. So maybe in another episode. There's two more questions that I want to ask you, Joel. First being, where can people find you, and in what ways can people currently work with you?
Yeah. So the best place would be head over to my website, iamjoelbrown.com. I've got a lot of articles on there. I've got my podcast episodes. You can reach out to me on there, or you could go to Instagram as well. And I am Joel Brown is my Instagram. Just DM me on the account there, and I'll respond.
Awesome. Thank you. And last question. When you came into the season 1, I asked this question just a little bit differently. So I'm curious to hear what you say this time. In your opinion, what makes a leader sacred?
I think what it takes to be a leader in itself is so valuable, and it's valuable because it's not easy to be a leader. And that's what I love most about it, is that it calls us to a higher ground, and what's on higher ground is sacred. What's on higher ground has lived courageously and fully to be there. And it's not to be pedestaled. It just is on higher ground, and is an inspiration to others to come to that higher place too. And that's what makes it so sacred.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to be here again. And thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your commitment to being an authentic leadership and influence through the work that you do, not just what we can see on social media and all of the things, but I know that you're someone that's really committed to doing the work behind the scenes as well. So really commend you for that.
You too. Thanks a million. Appreciate you having me.
I hope you enjoyed this video and got lots of value from it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for many more value-packed free videos, and share this with anyone in your life who can also get value from it. If you want to get access to all of my free resources and connect, check out the links in the caption. Thank you again, and I will see you on the next video.